The Caribbean journey of India continues. The ODIs are done and dusted. 3-0 to Team India. We've had a bit of a breather. Well, many breaths have been taken over the weekend at the IPL auction, and then it's back from auction to action on the field in a format that the West Indies enjoy more than any other. The T20 format. And India too aren't that bad at it, but two excellent T20 international sides going head to head at each other in the first of three games at the iconic Eden Gardens in Kolkata. And here we are on Cricbuzz Live to preview the first of these three games. And let's go and meet our expert panel. And here they are joining us. Ajay Jadeja, and trying to keep a quick lookout. There he is. I recognize him. RCB keeper batsman Dinesh Karthik. DK, welcome to the show. I had to get that in.
Thank you so much. It's been a good week. A lot of wishes have been pouring in, so it's been an exciting week and a very interesting auction. And like Rohit has just said, I think the auction is out of the table right now, and we need to focus on the color blue for the next week.
In fact, it's been the standard theme, Ajay, for both teams. Even Kieron Pollard's come out and made a statement. I was on a show yesterday with the West Indies team. Brian Lara popped in on Instagram and said, listen, guys, auction over. Remember, you've got a series to win. LOL.
Yeah, good evening to both of you. And yes, I mean, auction is exciting. We all get excited. I guess why we probably get more excited is because we only get to see it once in a year. But actually, this is what it is all getting ready for. And action is what it is. And if there were any nerves or any excitement from with the West Indian young players that they were looking forward to the auction, all that is behind them. And now it's probably, go out there. And this is the action time. So, we might just get something very special from West Indies today because, if there was any pressure or any, expectation, that's out of the window. And if you've been left out and if you're disappointed with what you've gone for or somebody didn't bid for you, you would want to come out and express yourself. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, interesting dynamics there. The venue, DK, you know it well. Also my home venue, the difference being I've seen it from the stands. You've seen it from out there in the middle, the Eden Gardens. Without spectators today, there'll be a few corporate guests, but essentially it's not going to be an intimidating bowl for the Windies.
Yes, I just want to say first up that Eden Gardens is not the same Eden Gardens when there's no crowd. It just feels very different. The atmosphere is brilliant. Playing for KKR for 4 years, one of the things that you enjoy the most, and you got to understand, the first 2 years was in Calcutta, and we enjoyed the home crowd advantage. It really plays a big part. They're a very vociferous crowd, and Team India will be missing that. And it is one of Team India captain's favorite hunting grounds, and to have no crowd there obviously will be a touch sad for the players, but I think to an extent all players are now used to playing without crowds.
Interesting, Ajay, at the toss when Rohit Sharma was asked, he seemed to be a little non-committal. He had this usual Rohit Sharma laugh and he said to Ian Bishop, I won't really comment on the pitch because every time we come here it plays a little bit differently.
It does. In fact, the last couple of years, it's played well. I mean, DK is better equipped because he's spent time there. But, there's a little, bounce. The ball came on much nicer. I remember times when it turned square as well. So it is one of those tracks that can play differently and how you prepare it. But lately, it's been fabulous. I mean, mostly it's been fabulous to bat. Rarely, if it turns a bit or if it's very dry. But at the start of the season, I doubt that it'll, turn that much. It should be one of those nice batting wickets. And as you said, Rohit Sharma loves this ground. And it's not just the wicket. I think it's the outfield that makes a very big difference as well. Because anything that goes in the gap, that puts extra pressure on the bowlers, the captains try and cut those angles. You bring that fielder a little couple of yards in. So that gives you a little more freedom as a batsman. So, batsmen love being on this ground. And, last few years has been very high scoring.
Well, Pollard mentioned the average first innings score and said we'll really have to bat well. And that's what they're doing. They've lost the toss to West Indies. Rohit Sharma's asked them to bat first. And they know they'll have to be on their game, put runs on the board, enough runs on the board to be able to challenge Team India. So that, again, at the very top is the news of the toss. No-brainer, DK, in terms of just wanting to bowl first, assess the surface, see out what happens, and know what kind of total you're chasing.
Absolute no-brainer these days, mainly because of two things: the fact that most teams like to chase, they know what they want to know, what the total is, so that they can completely, set and bat the way they want, the tone at which they want. And secondly, the most important factor that is a big problem in Asia is the dew. So the more the dew is, the easier it gets to bat.
Yeah, certainly will be. That's what we're looking forward to. We're going to bring you team news very shortly. In fact, we'll bring you the team news right now because we've got a cap that was handed out. And of course, I got local knowledge here. I was speculating, like so many of us speculate. Yuzvendra Chahal handed the cap over to Ravi Bishnoi. And there I was when I heard that. I said, oh, that means Yuzi is not playing. So started making my 11. But DK, you were spot on with that one. Players in the playing 11, if they have a reason to, can give a cap away. So both leg spinners playing in the 11.
Yep, it's a pretty interesting 11 because, and I say that because it's good to see Bhuvi there. It's good to see Ravi Bishnoi, coming into the squad, and nice to see Venkatesh Iyer. These were names that were spoken about in a very hot manner a couple of weeks ago, and suddenly it's gone cold. But it's good to see all of these players back. A lot of them happy names as well. Post a couple of days ago.
Ajay, two leg spinners. Not sure again what kind of role they're expecting from Venkatesh Iyer. Very different, obviously, again from what he played at KKR.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that side, you feel that the role that we saw him play for India, bat later down the order 5 or 6, because you don't see him going top of the order. We've heard Ishan Kishan is the one who's going to open with Rohit. Virat, I doubt, is going to go down. Earliest is what, 4, but you got Surya Kumar Yadav in there and Rishabh Pant's batting at 4, so looks like it's number 6 for Venkatesh Iyer, and a little bit of bowling probably. So that's another all-rounder that they're looking at. Where I haven't seen him bat at number 6. He plays in the middle order for Madhya Pradesh. He's done exceptionally well. At 6, what is it that they're expecting? Because what I know Indian, the selectors and the team would definitely have seen a lot more than all of us who see on TV. But when you saw Venkatesh Iyer and the excitement and the skills that you saw were right at the top of that innings. So, Ishan Kishan's, an opener, everybody wants him there. At the end of the day, when KL comes back, he's going to be slotted right back in. I mean, I'm presuming that. So 6 is probably a better option to have because there are fewer takers of that at this moment or in Indian cricket. So we could, make a mark there, and I wish him well.
Yeah, the newcomer in the squad, of course, Venkatesh Iyer has very much almost become part of the setup right now, even albeit in a different role. But Ravi Bishnoi, that's the new name that we're all talking about. Such an exciting find it was. We saw him play in that under-19 World Cup that India reached the final but didn't win that tournament. This is his record in the IPL, 24 wickets in 23 games. Made an impression for Punjab. And of course, did so in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy as well. But I think really it's the system, DK, that he's come through. Already talked about at the Under-19 World Cup, continued to perform at the IPL, and now he makes that step up to national colours.
Yes, I think it's been a very fast rise for him. He's the good thing for him. He's landed in a team which has a legendary leg spinner. So for a start, I think going under Anil Kumble must have helped him a lot. He obviously honed the skills there. He did well there. In the Under-19 World Cup, you could see he was a standout bowler there, winning matches for them. In many ways, the bowling was very dependent, especially the spin bowling department was dependent on him. And so did the Punjab Kings 11 spin bowling department, I think, was very much dependent on how well he bowled. And he did bowl really well in IPL. He has a very sharp googly, and he bowls it at a very flat trajectory and bowls it at a pretty decent speed for a leg spinner. So he's got some good skill sets about him.
And of course, the list of spinners keeps growing, gentlemen. I mean, as if we didn't have enough being churned out from the cupboard, Bishnoi adds to that list. And we thought we'd prepare a list of India's spinners since January 2020, Ajay. And that's a long list with Bishnoi now added to this ever-growing list.
Yeah, it's a pretty long list. I mean, on one side, you could feel that you're fortunate that you have all these choices to pick from. But what surprises me on that list, surprises or shocks me, is that R. Ashwin, somebody whose class of bowling that you have is not even debatable. But the man was out out of the white ball cricket or one day cricket or 2020 for sure for almost a year and a half, 2 years. Suddenly he was back in the fray. He was back in the fray of the World Cup. Then he played the next series after that. and then not to be, carried on surprises me a little, because I can understand a young man that you picked, you saw something and you saw and said, maybe he needs time, maybe he needs something else. But when you bring back a stalwart into the side, it's to use him. Yes, I understand. Then the World Cup was over, that you could have left him there and then and brought him back whenever you wanted. But when they went in the next series with him, I thought, I'm happy to see him, because I feel he's one of the finest bowlers that you have. And a great bowler is always good, whether what the format is, he'll find a way. So after that series to be left out again, I wonder what he must be also wondering. I mean, what is, for a player, it's not very easy where, you can be picked and dropped, that's fine. But when you're picked and dropped, suddenly you start doubting yourself. And I don't think, Ravichandran Ashwin will doubt himself. I mean, he's very strong mentally. But what that tells me is that, now for the next World Cup, you've already decided you don't want him, because you've left him out too early.
DK, if we have a look at that long list, can we even pick on someone and say, okay, he is our frontline spinner? Or should it not be matter? Is that just a moniker, and we say, listen, horses for courses, you play who you do in that particular day in that series?
I do think, just to rather converse with Ajay Bhai, that I think Ashwin is injured. That's why he's not there. It's not that he was dropped, if I'm right. So that is part one. Part two, your question, I just feel that, this series and Sri Lanka series are very good and very important, and it will be looked at. But very, very important these days is how the IPL goes for you. And all these spinners will be in action. They'll all play, and anybody has a fabulous IPL. Post IPL, I think, is when you can, kind of zone in and say these are the kind of bowlers we're going to see. Because IPL, everybody plays 14 games and highly competitive games, and people stand up at various points of time and do well for the franchisee. So it's much easier to, get in on the bowlers once the IPL is over. For the moment, I think everybody has an option right now.
So that's as far as the Indian 11 is concerned. 3 seamers, 2 leg spinners, 2 wrist spinners, and the option of Venkatesh Iyer should they choose to go to him. But for the West Indies, this is the lineup. The big news is that the big man, not the captain, this time he's playing, but the other big man, Jason Holder, got hit in the nets. He misses out. And as a result, Roston Chase is a like-for-like replacement for him. And this is how it looks like. Kyle Mayers is the one man we didn't see in the one-day series. Neither did we see Romario Shepherd. A lot was expected for him. And of course, Rovman Powell, a lot of interest in him at the auction as well, Ajay. So these are essentially their T20 specialists, if you like it. A couple of the guys in there who don't really play either of the other 2 formats.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to this format, this is the team. This is the exciting team, and they're probably one side that they could put another side on the other side, and get another 10 players in, and they could replace each other. I mean, not like for like, or they've got different skills. They can all bat and bowl, but they bat differently, they bowl differently. In this case, Roston Chase, totally different from Jason Holder. One is a seamer, one is a spinner, but their batting probably, if you see, their styles the same. They're not those powerful. They both hit sixes. I mean, Jason Holder hits, but he's much more steadier when you look at, the other guys, the Purans and Pollard. They have that, real power behind them. Roston Chase, one who holds the innings together. Different format. Rare. I mean, I wouldn't have seen Roston Chase in this side, at least in the 20. I would have liked to see him in the one-day game. It's probably more useful there.
In fact, you're spot on, Ajay. I was on the boundary line the day the West Indies team for the T20 World Cup was announced, and Roston Chase had just walked off the field. He didn't know the result of the selection yet, and he was told that he's in that T20 World Cup team, and he was as shocked as everyone else, because while obviously he was delighted, but he had made the effort to try and reinvent himself as a steady number 4-5, and of course bowl his off spin whenever required. But Ajay is right, DK. The firepower that they have with their 6 hitters. I mean, they are one team who can be classified as a 6-hitter hitting team. Brandon King, Nicholas Puran, Kyron Pollard, Odean Smith, Romario Shepherd. They do it for fun.
No, absolutely. I think Kyle Mayers batted beautifully. He opened the innings against England and did well. Rovman Powell has shown some special skills to hit boundaries. Kyron Pollard, again, we all know what he's capable of. If you see that order, everybody's got power there. So, this is a very interesting lineup. And the person that Ajay Bhai rightly spoke about has a very interesting strike rate there. I don't think, he is somebody who's going to be one of those six hitters, but definitely he has a role to play in this team as well.
Yeah, there's one. I mean, that stands out for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the poor guy. He's the only one who's not 100%, even to 100%. And I hope, they're not thinking, because, they've had so many powerful hitters. And sometimes, you say, oh, let's put somebody who holds the team together, gels it together. That could be the only thought that I see with Roston Chase. Why would you want to gel anything together? It's only 20 overs. You've got power players. And I think this is the picture of, West Indies cricket. There's enough talent. There's no shortage of people around the world are fighting for players from West Indies. So there's enough talent. But as a team, you don't see the results. And this is probably one of the reasons people are used at different places, not used, in their comfort zones or what their skills are. And I think this is one of those examples. Even if he bats at 3 and holds the innings together, I think they're shortchanging themselves because they have the options. If they didn't, that's a different story.
Yeah, they certainly do. But we will be seeing a very different kind of approach. DK, I remember we singled out Brandon King in the preview to the One-Day International saying, look, they need somebody to stay longer. Brandon King will come and make 14 of 11 or maybe 21 of 18, which is just not cutting it in an ODI. But it may not necessarily always be the worst thing in a T20 game if you've given them a start.
Yes, I think Brandon King's batting, and I think he's played a lot more T20 than the ODIs for West Indies. He's very comfortable in this format, done a brilliant job for Guyana Warriors. I think he's a terrific opener. I think he's done very well. And interestingly, how well Guyana plays dependent a lot on him at times, and he's been really good for them. So it'll be very interesting to see how well he's able to go in this series, because he'll be one of those who would probably be disappointed not being part of IPL and would try to put his name up by doing as well as he can.
Yeah, he certainly would be. We're going to show you a list of players who are in there. But for now, let's go back to focusing on Team India. And this, of course, has to be a roadmap. We've finished with the ODIs. We're looking at a big T20 World Cup coming in Australia at the end of the year. And this is the time to start thinking about it. Not that many games that you'll actually play. And this is what Rohit Sharma said on the road to the World Cup. The idea is to identify the players who are going to play the World Cup and give them game time. Important. There are a lot of players who are injured, not with the team. Come the World Cup, I don't know who's going to be fit and who's not, but we've got to get the backups ready. So it's a combination of game time for those who we are sure about, but keeping those backups ready. These guys are young, haven't played a lot of cricket. We need to give them the assurity in game time. We are trying to find those holes that are there in the squad and try and fill that gap. DK, obviously, I mean, when you look at India's T20 side, it's very difficult to find holes in it, but you've got to be critical. You've got to sit as a unit and tell yourself that we've got to be ready with players for every position and a standby for everything.
Yes, I mean, we are all aware of this interesting virus, which has completely caused havoc in most of our lives and most of the journeys for a lot of the players as well. So I think that is something that you always need to keep in mind. A lot of these decisions these days are dependent on how who gets obviously the COVID and who doesn't, and all of those issues. So I completely agree with what Rohit Sharma said. I think it's important to have a good core group of players, but also have even more important is to make sure the backups are as good, so that mentally you're free as well as a captain, so that you know that you literally have one backup a player, and something goes wrong, you have somebody to replace them. It's happened so many times that COVID has struck and teams have struggled. So I think it's a good thought, and India is very clever that way to make sure that they have good backups as well.
Ajay, that's one aspect of it, injury/illness, if we could call it that. But what about from a technical perspective, from a tactical perspective, should I say? We've talked a lot about spinners. There's a whole lot of backup there. Do you see any essential gaps that you'd really like to see filled? Maybe a fast bowling all-rounder type player, like an Odean Smith or a Romario Shepherd.
For West Indies or
for India? For India. I'm just saying the equivalent.
I got them, honestly, I personally feel you have at the problem, if you have a problem, actually, if you can call that a problem, is that you have so many players and so many good players. They've all done well. It is actually tough for you to make that decision. Who do you want to go with? It's like today's game. I mean, if you look at that game, I don't know what the thought has gone behind. So you've got Chair now playing. Shardul Thakur's resting. I mean, or resting or injured. So imagine if he was one of these guys was injured. So you have a choice there. You got, Bhuvi is different. Bhuvi's, I don't see Deepak Chair is playing, but I don't see Deepak Chair and Bhuvi similar kind of bowlers. Yes, they both swing, but they're totally different. Siraj gets injured. You have another quick bowler around. You definitely don't have a replacement for Jasprit Bumrah, because what he does is special. Or you don't have a replacement for somebody like a Rohit Sharma or a Virat Kohli. But every department in Indian cricket at the moment has surplus players. The problem that I see is that who are you going to go with? Because in that line, if you see, Rohit Sharma wants these guys to get game time. Whoever's going to play, whoever's in his scheme of things. So, that decision making of saying, listen, this is, if we have the choices and none of these guys are injured, which is the 11 that is going to pick? That, I think, is the biggest problem that Indian cricket has at the moment. That having all your players fit, which is the 11 that you'd go with? Because at the moment, what's happened is somebody's unfit, somebody's not available, there's COVID. So, you move players around, and that probably doesn't affect players' confidence, because it's not in and out of the side because of you're not being picked and dropped as injured. I was, totally wrong with Ashwin's case. So if it's injury, then it's different. But when you are brought in, brought out, it becomes very difficult. So at the moment, the problem that Rohit Sharma has, that he has to pick. Rohit Sharma might want to open with Ishan Kishan, but there is an opener who's already so good and he's already around. He might want to bat somebody else at number 3, but Virat Kohli is there, so you can't even go beyond that. So there are some slots that you will not go beyond. So where are you going to fit these players? So I think we are still at that stage where Rohit Sharma, and don't forget, Rohit Sharma has just taken over this team. I mean, the way he wants to play, he's brought Kuldeep back, and he hasn't had too many games with his team. So I think he will take a little more time to play with certain players. And before you go to Asia, I think Asia Cup side, although different conditions, but I think that is when India will be ready with a squad in their mind for sure, unless something drastically goes wrong.
Fair point. 2 points to finish this particular discussion, DK. One is, yes, the assurances. As a result of everything Ajay just said, which makes so much sense, you're looking at someone like Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid giving the assurances to the larger scheme of things, the larger squad, and then making sure that Asia Cup, these bilateral T20Is, and of course the IPL as well, even though you're not playing as a unit, will be important for those players. Ajay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we've got him now.
Yeah, I lost you there for a bit, but I completely get your point. I think what Ajay said, I think by the time Asia Cup starts, we'll get a very fair idea as to what the squad is going to be and how it's going to look like. Right now, it's obviously in the trial phase. The key was for Rohit to have a look at who is good and who he feels should be doing what role, etc., etc. But as the games unfold post the IPL, I think we'll be getting very close to a team that they'll be looking at and honing in on in a serious manner.
Yeah, so I think every aspect will play.
DK has a good IPL, 550 runs at a strike rate of something. Suddenly things will change. That's what it does. Surya Kumar Yadav before the last IPL was nowhere close to the Indian side. At the end of the IPL, when what you saw, there he was. Venkatesh Iyer is another example. He wasn't around the Indian side. Forget about Indian side. He wasn't even the KKR side in the first half. Suddenly things change. So Indian cricket changes pretty quickly, and I totally agree with him. I think IPL is where, and especially for this format, that's your only showcase. So if somebody goes there and has a great season, that's the man that we're going to be looking for. Harshal Patel, another one added last year. So this IPL, we'll have a couple of guys who will change the whole dynamics for sure, because somebody has to do well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that name right at the end. If you weren't, I was going to pop that name in. Very, very perfect example of exactly what you were trying to say. Gets in the limelight, pushes his way into the team, and then it's up to you to try and fill those gaps. Joy factor is what we've got left on the show before we try and make our predictions for what West Indies will get after losing the toss at the Eden Gardens. Joy is also from Kolkata, spent a lot of time at the Eden Gardens. Wonder if the question has anything to do with this ground. No, it doesn't. He's gone to the other end of the country. There is a Caribbean connect between one of the best catches of the 2003 World Cup and the 2022 Gujarat Titans squad. So it's not a question you can just jump up and answer. You've got to figure this out. Ajay has already figured it out. We'll come to him later after we get off air because we want to give all of you first shot. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Get your answers in. But for the moment, the question we do want you to answer, Ajay, before that is a number for West Indies after 20 overs. A prediction.
For prediction, 183.
183. Yeah, that's probably going to be very close to the par score batting first. 183. Could they make more than that, DK?
I think so, and rather I hope, because that's what makes Kolkata so beautiful. I think it's a high scoring venue, so I would say 191.
All right, 183, 191. I'll just go in favor of the Indian bowlers. Beautiful venue, but an attack that I think with those 8 overs of leg spin, which they're not that good at, I'm going to go down to 153. 153.
Wow.
Tend to be really wrong at times, but that's okay. That's part of the fun of just throwing it out there. We'll never know until the 20 overs are bowled. What we do know is that we promise to come back with an update at the halfway point at the 10 over mark on Cricbuzz Combox. And once again, it's been great to have Ajay and Dinesh Karthik with us on Cricbuzz Live. We'll see all of you in 10 overs time. That's all for this first T20 International on Cricbuzz Live.